Welcome to this edition of the Your Weekly Dose of Nonprofit podcast, the podcast that delivers actionable items you can implement at your organization right away. I'm your host, Ephraim Gopin of 1832 Communications. Today, I'm really happy to have with us my friend, a great guy, and a super smart fundraiser and nonprofiteer, Dan Hanley. Dan, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Ephraim?
I'm doing excellent. Let's introduce you to our listeners, watchers, and readers. Dan Hanley is a principal at UltraY Consulting based in Monrovia, California. He spent 12 years leading nonprofit development teams and calls himself a fundraising nerd. He works with clients throughout the US and Mexico and is especially fond of organizations working in human services and animal welfare. He considers himself a human rights and animal rights activist and uses his passion for making the world a better place as an asset when working with clients. Dan shares his home with his husband and 4 adopted furries and loves to read, ride his bike around town, and create delicious vegan dishes. He is currently reading Dreaming in Cuban by Cristina Garcia. In today's episode, we're going to discuss building a community. So let's dive right in. Dan, how do you define community building?
So I think about this a lot and I talk about it a lot. And I think for me, it boils down to relationships. So community building to me is building relationships with people who share my passion. And so that passion can be fill in the blank, whatever, one of a dozen passions I may have or more, but it boils down to building relationships with people who share that passion.
Fantastic. So how can building a community strengthen a nonprofit's overall fundraising efforts?
Yeah, so this is something that I focus on a lot in building community and building relationships. And the benefit to fundraising is that I don't believe fundraising is about money or raising money. I believe that it's 100% about building relationships. And you will always see frowns from board members and people shrugging their shoulders and say, who brought this guy to the table? But it really builds on relationships. And so being in community and building community means that you're putting your mission, your impact, your staff, your programs in front of more and more people. And they seemingly may come across as not having the same passion as you have or wanting to build relationships with other passions or within other passions. But what I've found is that the more I'm out there, the more I'm building community with people that I don't know, whether I'm representing UltraY or my nonprofits or my past nonprofit world, I always walked away from an attempt at building community with knowing somebody that I didn't know before that will benefit me, my mission, my program staff, our volunteers, just going down the list.
Love that. So let's go to today's actionable item. Please tell us 3 things a nonprofit must be doing in order to build and maintain a community of dedicated supporters, or what I like to refer to as cheerleaders.
Sure. So I was going to break out my pom-poms for this with the cheerleaders, but my first one is to get out in the community. And this is not difficult for most nonprofits. It just takes a little bit of an investment of time. So this could be joining your local chamber of commerce. This could be attending a Rotary Club meeting. It could be signing up to speak at a Rotary Club meeting or a Kiwanis meeting. It could mean attending economic forums, nonprofit events, leadership councils, community meetings and gatherings. Just number one is get out in the community. Let people know about your nonprofit. Give them a human face of the passion of what your nonprofit is about, what your mission is about, and the impact that you have every day. And not only that, to inform people on why you need to exist as a nonprofit. Number 2 is, this is something I love. Not everybody does, but it can be simple once you get used to it, is to keep your social media flowing with non-giving actions that supporters can take. So this is not constantly being on Twitter or Facebook saying, we're in dire need, we need to raise money, we need this much money for this. It's really just saying, hey, did you see this article in the newspaper? Did you see that? I do work with the domestic violence group, and I'm always posting articles about domestic violence because typically that's going to engage people who are interested in the cause. But there are many, many things you can talk about. You can have an employee of the week that you put on. You can have a volunteer of the week that you talk about. And it can be a couple sentences, or it can be a link to a whole page. But keep your social media flowing, because you're going to build community that way. And that will inevitably benefit your programs, your staff, and overall your mission. And then lastly, and this can be difficult for some nonprofits, because I've heard many say we just don't have enough for like group volunteers or for big volunteer projects. We don't have a specific thing. But I definitely believe that every nonprofit can invest in volunteers. If you currently have volunteers, invest more time and effort in building relationships. This is one of your forefront communities. This is the community that you want to be closest with, aside from your staff and your donors. It's kind of like a trio of communities that are most important to you. I highly recommend sitting down with your program team and maybe even board members and creating a plan that invests in your volunteers.
Excellent. All three of those, everybody who's listening, take notes and then go implement. So Dan, you don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk as someone who is active for quite a number of causes. Can you tell me examples of how nonprofits have shown their appreciation for you and kept you on as a member of their community?
Sure. So one of my favorite volunteer efforts is to work at shelters, animal shelters. And one of my favorite tasks is cleaning cages. And that is mainly because I want every animal in there to have the best experience they can. They're frightened. Some of them went from laying on somebody's lap to being in a cage. Some of them are sick. They're all freaked out. And so for years, I spent one day a week in the afternoon cleaning cages. And I remember one day, on a day that the executive director was off, she came in because I was working. And, you know, in between scooping poop and spraying something nice in the cage, she puts her hand on my shoulder and just wanted me to know how grateful they are for the work that I do. I've gotten personal notes. I'm a huge fan of personal notes. I've even had one executive director make a donation to the organization in my honor. And those are just little things. I mean, there's things like nonprofits can do where they, at their awards ceremony, they may have a volunteer of the year or something like that. Those are much bigger, but we're all busy, right? We all have a lot going on, especially in the nonprofit world. So I think there's a lot of simple things that you can do to thank people that are supporting your cause.
Excellent. So on your website, altrui.org, you have a word cloud, and one of the words there is relations. You love to get out and meet people. So as a consultant, what advice can you give to other consultants who are looking to network and build relationships?
That first and foremost is join your local chamber of commerce. And if you don't like your local chamber of commerce, your immediate one, join anyways and see if there's anything you can bring to the picture. You're going to meet people who are passionate for what you do. There's literally dozens of ideas that I think about when it comes to being a member of the chamber. I've been a member of the local Chamber of Commerce here. This month will be 3 years, and I've lived here for 5. So it took me a while to find my footing, but for 3 years, it's been extremely successful for me. And I've also been able to give back, to be of service to people in the chamber. A lot of times, especially if you're in the nonprofit world, you'll see that there are very few nonprofits present. And one day you'll get a call from a chamber member saying, hey, we need to do something with a nonprofit. And you're the nonprofit because you're the only one in the chamber, or something like that. It also allows you the opportunity to share what your nonprofit is doing. Every chamber event, you have an opportunity to speak. It may be 20 seconds, 30 seconds, but in that time, you can say, this is our biggest challenge. This is our biggest need. This is our biggest success. This is our biggest not success. And little by little, people get to know your nonprofit to where it builds community for you. So I think by far being a member of the chamber, most of them are pretty affordable, and most nonprofits and consultants can just use it out of our marketing budget. The other thing I like is just showing up at community events, kind of like what I was saying earlier. I love to be chatting with people about Ultra. I love to be chatting about my most current client or my biggest passion, or if something is in the news about something related to a nonprofit I support, I like to talk about that. And what happens is when you talk about your passions around nonprofit fundraising and how you want to change the world and make it a better place, you end up engaging with people. It may not be the first or second person you engage with, but at the end of the day, you've met people who have the same passions, and they may share the passion of the nonprofit that you work with. They may share your personal passion, but you get to build these relationships that end up adding to your community. So I think that's definitely it. The other thing is that I have to remember on a daily basis that I want to be of service to others. So it's not all about Ultra. It's not all about my clients. It's about how can I be of service to others, and how can I show my gratitude for this amazing business that I have, the amazing relationships I have, the amazing world I live in. And I can show that gratitude by being of service to others. And I'm much more apt and have more opportunities to do that when I'm out there engaging with other people.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So let's move on to the lightning round and learn more about you. What got you started on your nonprofit career path?
So a small local rural HIV/AIDS group in Boulder, Colorado, was looking for a new director of development. And some on their team asked me if I would put the word out to my Rolodex down in Denver. But then the next day they called and asked if I would consider applying. I came from the hotel business. I'd never considered working for a nonprofit. And, but I was in sales, and I was a huge relationship builder, and people knew that. The other thing was that my best friend died of HIV/AIDS on July 6th of 1992. And so that struck me. And so I decided to leave the corporate world and go help fundraise for this little HIV/AIDS group in Boulder, Colorado.
So given all your years in the nonprofit world, and you've been in it for a lot of years, if you could shake up one thing, what would it be?
So I think about this all the time, and I think today, this is something that I could answer different tomorrow probably, and the day before. But today I would say I want nonprofit fundraising professionals to be treated better. I want them to be respected. I want the board to realize the amount of work they put into everything. I want people to give them a break. I want them to be celebrated. And I want them to be put on a pedestal once in a while. I mean, literally, I've seen time and time and again the crap thrown at nonprofit professionals, and you see people leave the field, or you see, our turnover rate is awful. But if we just treated nonprofit professionals in a better, kinder, professional, ethical, compassionate way, I'm sure there's a bunch of other words I could think of. That's how I would want to shake it up.
Got it. I will add hashtag true story. Tell us, why is your company name Ultrawide?
So I thought a lot about this, and I put a lot of time in forming Altruai before the day I went public and told people and introduced people to Altruai. And Altruai is based on the word altruism and really just being altruistic and thinking of that and bringing good to the world and knowing that each one of us has that capacity on a daily basis to do one small thing to make the world a better place.
Beautiful. I love that. I didn't know that before, and now I'm glad I learned that. Excellent. So if you didn't work in the nonprofit sector, what sector would you work in?
So I love the ocean and I love the beach. And I think if I could, I would have a little espresso station on my surfboard, and I would go around and sell pre-bought espressos and coffees to people out in the water. So like kind of a coffee machine on a surfboard. People would buy prepaid. And I know that's really funny, but this is kind of my dream. I mean, anything where I could be on the beach, fully protected by the sun, of course, and listen to the ocean all day and be of service to others. And I love coffee. So that's probably what I would want to do.
Okay, that's a very creative, interesting idea, I have to admit. That's definitely
you would buy an espresso from me, right?
Dan, obviously. I just don't surf, but I'd still buy the espresso. So now that I've asked that question, I guess I almost know the answer to this one. Best part about living on the left coast?
Yeah, so we live about 30 minutes from downtown Los Angeles and in Los Angeles County, and it's easy to talk or to I hear a lot of negative things about Los Angeles, and it's crowded and smoggy and traffic, but I'll tell you, I've been all over the world, and it's one of the most magical places on earth. And the thing that makes it magical to me is that something I read when we moved here is that the second highest population of most countries after the population of people that live in their country is Los Angeles County. Like for dozens of countries, and the ethnicity, the diversity, and I mean hardcore diversity, not just Hispanic or Latino people or people from South America and Central America, but specific countries and parts of different countries and different cuisines and different dialects. And it's just fascinating to be, we're vegan, and to be in a vegan Chinese restaurant and be the only two white people in the restaurant, to be in a vegan Ethiopian restaurant and be it's very popular. So there's a few more white people, but the vast majority are not white. And to experience all the different cultures of the LGBTQ communities here, of the vegan and vegetarian communities, of the human rights and social justice communities, that just makes it magical. And a quick second is the beach, and a quick third, the weather. I mean, it's beautiful. There's nothing like wearing shorts during Hanukkah or Christmas or Ramadan. Nothing like it. And once you've spent a summer or a winter in Southern California, and you're from a cold climate like Colorado, where we moved from, you really never want to go back to winter. You just don't want to go back.
I hear that. All right, let's turn the table. You get to ask me a surprise question that I don't know what it is. Go ahead.
So one of the things aside from your charming personality, the thing that made me fall in love with you almost instantly was when you did a post about your grandmother, who's a survivor. And I've always wanted to ask this, and I'm quite surprised that I haven't, but I'll take advantage of it now, is what can I do as a friend to keep the memory of your grandmother and her experience alive? What can people do, even not me, but what can people do who don't have that shared lived experience but want to make sure that the memory and the experiences of those people that you love so dearly continue.
So I'll tell you like this, the Jewish tradition, and I'll start from there, is a tradition of passing it on from parent to child, parent to child. We're very much into that. That's how we learn our customs and religious customs and traditions. One of the things that I know, because I don't know the exact data and the stats, but there's a very high lack of knowledge about what happened in World War II amongst younger people today.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're, it's 75 years ago, which for them is like 5,000 years ago. And it happened on a different planet because it happened in Europe. And it happened at a time when one madman decided he's going to take out an entire people. And that might not go with how people think today. We wouldn't stand for that. Of course not. It's a matter of education. And that to me is the basis of it all, is that you read, you learn, you find out more, and then you call it out when somebody says something contrary to the facts on the ground. Look, my grandmother is 96 years old. When I come into the States in the summer, I don't stay too long to see her, maybe an hour each time, but I make my time to go see her a couple of times. She still has that number tattooed on her arm. I have a picture of that number. It's tattooed in my mind that she has that. That number, when I was 5, I was already asking her questions about it. And I can remember the first time I did. We were in Cleveland, Ohio, and I was walking her at 5:30 in the morning to her bakery job. And she was going to drop me off at synagogue with her husband, my grandfather. And I said to her, what's that number? And she had to explain to a 5-year-old why somebody had tattooed that number, what had happened. And I asked her, okay, you were in a war. What were you doing in the war? Now, she wasn't going to tell me the horrors of what she went through. But my education started very early on that one, very early. Mm-hmm. And I've always, every time I see her, she's 96, she's still clear in her mind. I'll pepper her with questions because I know that one day she won't be around and I won't have those answers. And the crazy thing was the last time I saw her, which was last year in August, my boys were with me. We went to see her. And I said to her just out of the blue, I said, who are you named after? Because your Hebrew name is after somebody. And she stopped. And then we started going through all kinds of generations of her family. And we realized she's named after her grandmother, something none of us had ever known because none of us had ever asked. So I always say that everybody in their own way, it's education. And the second thing is, as you know well, advocacy or calling out something which doesn't mesh well with the facts. So anytime there's a Holocaust denier or anything like that, it's calling it out and saying, that's wrong. So if you're educated, you can call it out. As you well know from your work with all kinds of activism, if you're not educated, you can't call out the wrong. And that's how I answer that question. To me, it's a matter of simply being educated and then saying, we don't tolerate all the craziness that went on, but beyond that, if somebody's going to deny it or say something didn't happen or whatever it is, you got to call them out. That to me that's how you do it. So that I hope that answers the question. But it does,
and I'm forever grateful. I'm forever grateful for you bringing her up in our early connections. I saw you bring her up on social media, and it really affected me.
I'm her oldest grandchild, so I have that special connection of somebody who lost everything, literally, and and suddenly, in fact, today was the circumcision ceremony for her great son. She has we now have 5 generations in our family of mother to daughter, straight down, basically.
Nice.
And so when you think, you give it a little bit of perspective. 75 years ago, she left Auschwitz with nothing, and now she's celebrating a great-great-grandson. Because that's the smile. You can see the smile and the joy I have because I've got that historical perspective of being able to look at it in a little bit of a different light.
Nice.
like that. Yeah. Thank you very much for appearing on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I
Thanks,
encourage everybody to connect with Dan on Twitter at fundraiserdan, and to go and connect with him via his website, altruai.org. Again, Dan, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
You too, a pleasure. We'll talk.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.